Another video, folks. This is where this is the reason why they hate white America and some black America hate. They hated Kate, they hated Angel Reese. The real reason. This is the real reason why, not because of her character or she's kind of she's like she's unserious, she's too flamboyant. Not because of that. Because of the black-white dynamics in American sports. And Roland Martin explains it. And it's all, this is more than sports, it's politics. It goes into politics. This is all politics, as you'll see.
Cheering on Caitlin Clark as she broke the NCAA record for most points, Division I record for most points ever scored in a career. Well, former NBA player Etan Thomas, he wrote a piece and he said, hey, what's going on? You've got some amazing players this year. Paige Bueckers, you of course, before she injured her knee, tore
Paige
ACL.
Becker.
You had Juju at USC. All this was happening, and Etan said, why isn't white America just rallying around Paige like they did Caitlin last year? Race is always at the forefront. Etan Jones is right now. Etan, glad to have you back on the show. So you say that the difference is Paige Bueckers doesn't have a black villain this year.
Yeah, Paige Becker.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of run a nerve with a lot of white people. You know, I mean, it was really clear that they made Angel Reese the villain after she beat Caitlin Clark, who was really kind of held up as, you know, the great white hope. She's a fantastic player, but then the media kind of went into this narrative of the villain. And that's what happened. I mean, it's not something that I made up. You know, you're looking at it where the viral image of Angel Reese doing the waving her hand in front of her face that went everywhere, and the outrage was just off the charts. And so then, you know, following the next years, Angel Reese was always the villain in anything that she did, and Caitlin Clark was praised. That's just what happened. So when I posed the question of why, you know, Paige wasn't really given the fawning over that Caitlin Clark was, I went through a few scenarios. You know, Paige has been outspoken. She used her ESPYs award to really credit black women. You know, she.
Yep. Haha. So she's not really, she's a black ally. She's not like a so-called, no, cares about, because she's woke. They would say she's woke. Like, she's not a conservative. Like, she's a black ally and she's not woke. And she's more of a liberal, I guess. And a white liberal. And they hate that. And they found out that Caitlin Clark's more of a liberal. Well, you know, she's a Democrat. And they hated her for that. Some of them do.
She doesn't have an Angel Reese factor.
But they still hate for Angel Reese because recently I saw a lot. Last week I saw a lot of videos and short videos of Caitlin Clark, like Angel Reese, and there's a lot of hate. They're just going after this girl. I mean, there's too much garbage, not even true, untrue stuff. I mean, this video this explains it here.
You know, and the fact of the matter is that a lot of the fans, not all of them, you know, but a certain demographic of fans were there for the wrong reasons. They came over to really celebrate Caitlin Clark's whiteness, not so much her talent. And it was definitely apparent. I mean, you heard all year that the NBA players were saying that they were getting attacked and, you know, racially attacked and you know, at the arena, you know, online, everything like that. That aspect wasn't there with Paige. Now, she's a wonderful player. She's probably going to be the #1 pick. But I wanted to know, why isn't that demographic, rallying around Paige? And I gave a few scenarios why, and that didn't make a lot of people very happy.
And of course, that transferred to the WNBA, where record numbers were turning out, and what you have was a Caitlin Clark playing in Iowa, flyover state, Midwest, all those things, and many of these white conservatives were pouring their views into her, thinking she was, quote, one of them, thinking that she was MAGA. Well, when she, as you said, when not only with the ESPYs, but also when she got named, a Person of the Year with Time Magazine, and she talked about the impact of black ball players. No, they're not hating me. We're not fighting. All those sort of different things. You literally had these white folks who turned on her, and she was like, "Yo, it's all about basketball."
Yeah.
And so you got Paige coming from.
You talking about Caitlin Clark? That is true.
Coming from Connecticut, but also she's got black folks in her life, and so your whole deal was, hey, these things are there, and people got mad. Fox News quickly picked it up, and that's when a lot of the hate started coming your way.
Oh, goodness. Fox News picks it up. And it was interesting because it was like, I saw one thing that said that I wrote a racist article. I'm like, wait a minute. How can it be racist to say, why aren't you cheering this white girl as much as you cheer this other white girl?
Exactly.
I don't know if people know what racist means.
No.
I don't use that term correctly. But no, I mean, Paige is a phenomenal player. I think that she should get a whole lot more recognition. But a lot of the people that were there, that demographic was there for the wrong reasons.
That's the point. They're not giving her recognition like they did Caitlin Clark. That's the whole point. And the reason is because of Angel Reese. And the main reason is, Angel Reese. And they hated Angel Reese. And that is a dynamic to it too. And not just Angel Reese. After that, she went to WNBA, and she was kind of overhyped. And everyone was saying that they're just hating on her, these girls. But some were hating on her, but some were saying that it's not going to be easy. They're playing, and it was more physical. And they were saying that they cheap shotting her and this and that. All the black players were, and they're just hating on the players. Making up bullshit, talking nonsense, and racist remarks, this and that, and the fans are these guys, and they get death threats. The NBA players, the WNBA players were getting death threats, the black ones, and I think they explained it here in the interview. But
the tail of that was Caitlin Clark repeatedly had to ask for her not to be weaponized. And she spoke out against racism and spoke out against bigotry because it was so prevalent. It was happening all over. And every time she did, you saw that, she's giving in to the woke mob and doing all that different things. There's a certain demographic that uses that language. So, of course, that's not all Caitlin Clark's fans. I'm not saying that at all. But that demographic was sure there. And they boosted ratings, and they were there for the wrong reasons, and they were weaponizing her no matter how many times she asked them not to.
It is quite interesting when you touch that nerve, and they don't want to admit it, but we saw what was taking place, and those of us knew. And you know what? There were a lot of people who, I think she's getting too much attention. I disagreed. Bottom line is, when you break the all-time record, you're going to get that level of attention. I had no problem with her coming in, and all of a sudden, the new TV contract rating is going up. To me, I said it was the same thing when Tiger Woods came into golf. And what I was saying to some players who were complaining, I literally was like, I need y'all to shut the hell up. It's a whole bunch of folk who did real well when Tiger came in. So I didn't see that as a big deal. But the reality is, race was present.
But it's a little bit different with Tiger Woods. So when Tiger Woods came in and broke the barrier, so yes, we all got excited to see somebody that looks like us, dominating the sport where you typically don't see that. That's fine. You know what I mean? When Naomi Osaka came in, yes, the same thing. That is fine. The problem is with Caitlin Clark, then you began to bash Angel Reese. There was like this hatred towards the other players, the black players. Then there was like, oh, well, they don't mean, there's this disrespect, this constant, like if Caitlin Clark invented basketball. And it was like, well, wait a minute now. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be disrespectful to the other players. And it's not something, I saw a lot of media people, kind of reducing it to saying mean tweets or,
Yep. And she became overhyped. They overhyped her a lot. That's the thing. And it's disrespect the other players.
Something like that, but no, they would have reacted differently if it was their daughters or wives or something like that who were on the other side of, racist attacks. And that's the way the WNBA players described them. Not just simply mean tweets or fans saying boo or something like that. Literally racist attacks. So that's the difference. It's fine to cheer for somebody that looks like you, but when you demonize someone else and then all the other players, then that's when it's different.
Questions from my panel. Tyler, you first.
So great to meet you. I think, it's clear that race plays a role in how athletes are perceived. Do you believe the story romanticized because that Caitlin was from Iowa and they're trying to say because UConn is
I'm going to forward a bit.
This team to be
I want to forward what's his name.
That it made it a little more difficult for the other story to be told.
Personally, I think when Caitlin Clark spoke out and spoke out against racism, you saw a lot of them get upset with her. When she liked the tweet, you remember when she liked the tweet from Taylor Swift, and the tweet was something with...
It was regarding Vice President Kamala Harris.
Right, and you saw how upset they got.
Ooh, they were pissed.
That tells me that it wasn't about where she was from. They were trying to weaponize her and make her something that they wanted to make her as a symbol. So,
thank you.
I've heard a lot of people say that, well, it's the...
I want to hear
the location or, how many points she scored. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But if that was the case, then you would have been upset of her liking her tweet. You wouldn't be upset of her denouncing racism.
Highest, I think it's still the highest, the highest bets placed on a fight was what? What was it? Anybody know?
Which one? Well, it's been a few of them.
It's only one we talking about. A white dude and a black dude.
Floyd and Connor.
No. It's a white dude and a black dude.
Go back to Jack Johnson?
No. George Cooney. Now it was Cooney.
Jerry Cooney.
Cooney and Larry Holmes.
Right.
That was a white black. That was a white black dynamic.
Great white hope.
So the point Eton's talking about is, and again, when boxer Tommy Morrison came on, they were hoping he was going to be the great white hope. Well, so what Eton is laying out is the white-black dynamic. White guy champion, the black guy villain, however they play it, that dynamic has always played. And even if they don't characterize, to your point, Magic Larry, Magic wasn't the, quote, villain. In Boston he was, in L.A. Larry was. That white dynamic was there. I'm from Houston, and Eton, the documentary shows it. If you were black in America, 9.9 out of 10, you would cheer for Magic. And if you were white, 9.9, you would cheer for Larry. And if you were black in Boston, you would cheer for Magic.
Right. Like I said, I do realize there is a racial component to this. But for some spectators...
No. But Eton is actually making your argument. What Eton is saying is that Angel Reese was made out to be the villain.
Mm-hmm.
She's black.
Exactly.
I understand that.
You had Caitlin Clark. What's the difference this year? He's literally saying you don't have the racial dynamic because you don't have the villain. The villain was not created. And unfortunately, the villain is always, in these dynamics, it's going to be a black-white thing. That's what. What you're laying out, Eton, is that the role that media plays because the.
And you have Juju Watson was hurt, so maybe you would have had a kind of a dynamic. You would have if she didn't get hurt, and they would have faced each other in I guess it would have been the Elite Eight. I think they would have faced each other, or the final the 32 they would have faced. No, the Elite Eight they would have faced each other, but she got hurt, and they eventually they beat URC. But yeah, they beat URC. I think it was a blowout. It was close. I think it was a blowout. We beat them, but she didn't play, so there wasn't that dynamic.
Racial dynamic in media drives this too.
Right. But I was posing another question, though. But go ahead, E-Time. Go ahead. I may do a follow-up.
No, I definitely hear what you're saying, and I wasn't saying that everybody fell into that category. But
Right.
there was that
I understand.
strong demographic that was there for that reason, and that reason only, because they weren't fans of women's college basketball. They weren't fans of the
At all.
They didn't know
Exactly.
anything about anything else.
Yeah.
All they knew was Caitlin Clark and her whiteness. That's it. And that's what they were there to celebrate. And they didn't care about any other players, any other teams, of the history of anybody's even records. And it was interesting as you saw the dynamic play out during the season, and it was really frustrating to see even some black media people kind of buy into this.
They did.
Where they used weaponized language.
Yeah.
I think it was Carrington who fouled Caitlin Clark.
Some of these are black sellouts. Some of these black media people are black sellouts or coons. I shouldn't say coons or sellouts.
One time, and they said it's like she poked her in the eye or something like that.
Right.
And I saw, and they were saying she stabbed her in the eye.
She was mugged.
I was like, oh, wait a minute, stabbed her? Why that language? And they're using it for a specific reason. They were holding Caitlin Clark up as the delicate white flower that all the other mean black players were trying to hurt and to harm, and they had something against her, and we have to protect this delicate white flower. That's the way the media created it. Now, no, Caitlin Clark didn't say that. She did. Right. He did a good job of saying no. It was just a foul. It was nothing like that. But she had to constantly fight against that because that is the dynamic, the racial dynamic that the WNBA was playing on, because they knew why a lot of the people were there. The new fans, because that helped their revenue. That helped the views. That helped everything else. So it benefited them. So the WNBA kind of allowed all that to happen. They didn't really, squash it the way that they could have.
They should have.
And the way that you hear the descriptions of
it was disgusting too. They should have clamped down.
Crowd and the fans actually in Indiana in the arena, it was horrible.
And the reason
they could have squashed that with the security and everything like that. They allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
And Tom, the other reason why it's so hilarious is that you had white WNBA stars. But here's the other element nobody wants to deal with.
Yeah.
The other thing is they also didn't like the white WNBA players because they were lesbian.
Oh.
Even though you had some of the white women who was a white woman with the Aces who was married to the NFL player with the Giants, it was like, yeah, whatever. So really what you had here, and this is also the dynamic because when she goes from college to the pros, while you had that. But what you had is, and we just have to, look, it's a reality. Okay, for years. What was the whole thing about Johnny Carson? Johnny Carson, he appeals to Omaha. He appeals to the Midwest. Everything was the Midwest. And well, people don't even understand how that whole thing played on the psyche. Even today, they go the flyover states. I'm appealing to the Midwest because this country holds the Midwest up as the pantheon of what it means to be an American. People watching may not even realize that in the radio business, in the television business, they literally taught people, white and black and others, you need to have a Midwest voice. A Midwest voice was devoid of an accent. So you couldn't sound like you were from New York or from Boston or from Georgia or South Carolina or North Carolina or Texas or California. No, the optimum voice was the Midwest sound. And I remember
it's kind of true. I'm not gonna go into that. You can talk. So let me see if he talks about anything else.
from Iowa, the cornfields. She's
Well, then people say, okay, well, she got injured. Okay.
Let's see that.
greatest ever. And no, we never heard of Cheryl Miller.
Right.
Let's go back.
It's the voice sound. So what do we do in this country? It's the Midwest. The Midwest. Woman dominating in this sport where black women dominate. #1 score. She's from Iowa, the cornfields. She's a heterosexual. More than likely, she's one of us. She's MAGA. We're going to make America great again hat. We're going to rally behind her. And your point, as she would say, they would say something. She ain't one of us.
Yeah. Ha.
She ain't one of us.
No.
Lord, if she had come out as lesbian, they would have they would have lost their mind, Eton. They were attacking WNBA players who stood up for Black Lives Matter,
Yep.
who stood against, they were attacking the black ball players in college who took knees as well. And they said the great white hope has arrived. And that's where they were holding up as this the epitome of greatness. Oh my God, she's the greatest ever. And no, we never heard of Cheryl Miller.
Right. or Sharika Holsklaw, or, a whole list of others.
Or Candace Parker, or Maya Moore, or Lynette
Yeah,
Woodard.
wow.
And we could go on and on. It was like, whatever, we don't care. It's all Caitlyn.
Right, all Caitlyn. And so Paige, in her, when they're looking at her, especially after she gave that SB speech, but before that, she was, if you go back to her freshman year and the stats that she put up, I mean, she won the Player of the Year. You know what I mean?
Right.
She was really dominating.
But she wasn't from the cornfields of Iowa.
Definitely wasn't. But after that speech, a lot of them backed off of her.
There you go.
You didn't hear them cheering for her as loud. They wasn't praising her and everything like that. So
she made that speech with the SBs or whatever. But the SBs they're talking about. Well, she respect the black players, the founders of the WNBA. Not WNBA, the college players, the great black college players. They're in the NCAA, and I guess the WNBA. I think they said earlier, right? Or was it the college? I think the college players. And I mean, she looked up to them, and that's where they got. I guess what's her name? Taurasi. I think there was a hero too. Diana Taurasi was a hero. Yeah. And she's a lesbian, Taurasi. And they kind of disowned her. They kind of backed off a bit. See what he's saying? So that's why she wasn't that. Yeah, because she's pretty good. And they kind of backed off for her. She wasn't the next. And Caitlin Clark was the next one. All the records and stuff. And she was like more pure. Like she didn't have no politics. She wasn't woke. And they looked she's the next hope, I guess. The next white hope. In that sense. In the politics sense. I mean, she's like Aaron Rodgers kind of. But even he's kind of a MAGA head. But even Caitlin Clark wasn't like that. She's a liberal. So they kind of backed off for her now.
Then people say, okay, well, she got injured. Okay, she didn't get injured, but then she came back. So a comeback story from an injury, if they wanted to praise her, they would. She's going to be the #1 pick in the NBA and WNBA draft this year, probably. If they go on to win the championship, which there's a strong chance that they can.
Which they did.
Right?
And they did today. And missed the game, though.
you're going to tell me that she's not worthy of being like cheered and praised and all of that thing because of the way that she's dominating, the way she's playing. So then I said, okay, so let's look at some other reasons why. I saw that she was actually, what was she doing? She was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to cook breakfast for her Muslim teammates during Ramadan. That's not something that they're going to wrap their arms around. I mean, it's interesting when you see her
that will affect some of them. It's crazy, but it will.
Personality and how outspoken that she is, not just at the ESPYs, all the time. It doesn't seem like she's one of them.
Nope. That's why.
That's the part where I said, okay, this looks like this is a reason why it's different, and a lot of people didn't like hearing that.
See, her politics, the main reason. See, yeah, it's race. It's also her mostly. It's mostly the politics in this case. Even with Caitlin Clark, it's kind of, if she was like she came out woke. See, if she said, if Caitlin Clark came out and she didn't really express her politics. If she did back then, it would have been different. Like there wouldn't have been this big. She would have been hyped up, but not as big. It wasn't there be a big hype. See, she came out as a liberal. Like he spoke up about politics, whatever. She didn't really. She kept quiet. See. It was all about basketball. Then she did spoke out. Then she's more of a liberal. And these conservatives, they went against her. These conservative fans, MAGA fans, that went against her. See that, folks? And that's about it.
Listen, the reality of whiteness in America is truly astounding.
Yeah, it is. America, well, race plays a part in America a lot. But there you go, folks. That's why they hated. To me, that's why they hated Kate. They hated Angel Reese. That's the real reason, folks. And when she did that thing in the final four that year, she beat Iowa. And she did that John Cena thing, the hand, and they hated that. So they got triggered by that. Maybe if she hadn't done that, maybe they wouldn't have got triggered. In retrospect, maybe she should have done that. In hindsight, but hey, she can't take trash talking, I guess. And actually, Caitlin Clark she didn't say anything about that. Actually, she said, yeah, she's fair game actually. So that's it, folks. What do you think about that? That's the real reason why they hate Caitlin Clark. I'm out.